Hey everyone, how's it going? Matthew Kadish here, author of the Earthman Jack Space Saga, and today we're going to be taking a look at the brand new trailer that was released in over San Diego Comic-Con 2019, revealing our first real look at the Picard series. I'm really excited to take a look at this thing because I'm a big Star Trek fan, and I'm excited to see a return to the Next Generation cast, and yeah, let's take a look at it. All right, guys. So that was the trailer for the new Picard series, and I gotta say, I'm into it. This trailer, a trailer's job is to get you excited to watch the movie or TV show or whatever. This was a good trailer because it did its job. It got me actually excited to see the show. Like, I gotta admit, I was a little bit lukewarm to the idea of a Picard series from the moment it was announced, just because of the track record of CBS Star Trek so far. I'm not a huge fan of Star Trek Discovery. I thought the first season was really bad. Second season was better, but that's not saying much. There's still a lot of problems with Star Trek Discovery, so that kind of dampened my enthusiasm. I also wasn't a big fan of the Abrams Trek stuff. I liked Star Trek Beyond for what it was. Didn't much care for Into Darkness. I thought the 2009 Star Trek reboot was okay. But for a long time, ever since Enterprise went off the air, I've just felt like there's been a lack of good Star Trek. And this actually looks like a return to form to me. Like, I think that it gives me a lot of good vibes to see the next gen crew kind of coming back. So we know that Data has a cameo in the show, 7 of 9 from Voyager. It was confirmed on Twitter earlier that Diana Troy and Riker are going to be appearing in the Star Trek or in the Picard series, so they're coming back. And overall, I think I'm excited for this. And I know that might not be a popular opinion among the people who are unhappy with Discovery, but let me just take this time to clear some things up about that. So there's a lot of kind of innuendo and rumor going around about the state of Star Trek now. Basically, for those of you who don't know, all the new CBS shows are being produced by a production company called Secret Hideout, and that is run by Robert Kurtzman, Alex Kurtzman, who basically he was one part of the writing team behind the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movie. So it was him and his partner Roberto Orci and Damon Lindelof and J.J. Abrams who kind of sat down and wrote Star Trek 2009 and Star Trek Into Darkness. And Kurtzman and Orci eventually parted ways, and Kurtzman started his own production company, which got a production deal with CBS Studios. And so Kurtzman's Secret Hideout has been the one producing all the new Star Trek stuff. And during the time period in which Discovery was being produced, that was actually something that Alex Kurtzman didn't have a lot of input into, because he was off doing Universal's The Dark Universe and Tom Cruise's The Mummy at the time. So Discovery was really kind of started by the show's initial showrunner. And he eventually got fired. And then 2 new showrunners were brought on to replace him, and they eventually got fired. And then Kurtzman had to kind of step in, and by that time his deal at Universal had kind of fallen through. So he put all his effort into the second season of Star Trek Discovery, and then he handed that show off to Michelle Paradise, who's now going to be the showrunner for the third season of Discovery. And the way his production deal with CBS works is basically he came up with a list of ideas for new Star Trek content. He went to CBS, he pitched them. CBS liked what he had to offer, and they said, go ahead and do it. And so he went ahead and started production on this Picard series. And my guess is he probably oversaw the production and directed the initial pilot episode. And he's kind of, Kurtzman's from the J.J. Abrams school of television production, in the sense that J.J. Abrams kind of set the standard for coming in, directing a pilot episode to set the stage, and then kind of stepping back and going off to other projects while handing it off to people who run the day-to-day stuff. And he stays on board as executive producer. And this is kind of how Rick Berman operated early on with the Next Generation stuff, where Rick Berman was the producer of Star Trek Next Generation. He's also the producer for Deep Space Nine, for Voyager, and for Enterprise. And basically, he was just kind of like overseeing all these productions while other executive producers were handling the day-to-day. And there's been a lot of false reporting out there, in my opinion, about Kurtzman's current status because of this Picard show. And, people have been saying like, oh, Kurtzman's been fired. He's been replaced. He's gotten the executive producer credit to kind of save face, things like that. And it's complete baloney, in my opinion, because in my experience in Hollywood, I've never known of someone who runs his own production company firing himself from a project. Kurtzman owns Secret Hideout. He runs the company, and it's him that has the deal with CBS. So this idea that he was replaced just doesn't make any sense, because here's what would happen if CBS wanted to fire Alex Kurtzman. Okay, CBS has had it. They're fed up with him. What they would do is they would just immediately revoke the Star Trek license from Secret Hideout, because there are measures in their agreement with which to do that. They would just take the license away, and they would cancel all the Star Trek series that they ordered. They would cancel Discovery, they would cancel Picard, they'd cancel all that stuff, and then they would hand the license off to a different production company run by someone who isn't Alex Kurtzman, and that production company would take up the reins and either develop their own new stuff or develop current stuff that CBS owned via their deal with Secret Hideout. So this idea that CBS has like fired Kurtzman or kind of backdoored him into or relegated him into a position that's of non-importance, in my opinion, it's complete baloney, because Hollywood doesn't work that way. Like if CBS wanted to fire him, they would fire him. They wouldn't go through all this, secret shadow banning, backdoor saving face stuff. They would just straight up fire him, and they wouldn't work with him anymore. But I don't believe that that's happened. Typically, the way this stuff works is the guy who's overseeing these shows, he will launch a series, hand it off to someone, then move on to the next series to get that thing up and running. And what Alex Kurtzman did was he basically, developed this Picard series. He got Patrick Stewart to come on board. He probably directed the pilot, and now he's off to do other Star Trek shows while handing the reins over to new showrunner Michael Chabon. And the reason I'm hopeful for this is because Michael Chabon is the real deal. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with Michael Chabon, this guy is a Pulitzer Prize-winning novelist. He's won a Nebula Award. He's won a Hugo Award. He's won pretty much every award you can imagine under the sun for writing. This guy, he was, he got a Bachelor of Arts in Literature. He got a Master of Fine Arts degree in creative writing from UC Irvine. So this is a guy, he studied storytelling. He studied writing. And he's a big defender of genre fiction and plot-driven fiction. So, like, he's a guy who really understands, story. He understands structure. He understands plot. And he's a lover of genre. So stuff like science fiction, stuff like fantasy, stuff like horror. He's a guy who knows how to do this stuff. And he wrote a book, which he won the Pulitzer for, called The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay. And this book is considered to be like one of the greatest novels to ever be printed on paper. This thing, I don't think it's got like a single bad review from professional critics, and it got him a lot of cachet. And from there, he was able to kind of move into Hollywood. And in the 90s, he actually pitched ideas for X-Men movies. He pitched ideas for Fantastic Four movies. None of them were picked up. But one of the interesting things is he was actually a writer on Spider-Man 2, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2. And that was, in my opinion, one of the best Sam Raimi films. I think a lot of his contribution was with the relationship between Spider-Man and Doc Ock, and really fleshing out Dr. Octopus as like a real character and things of that nature. So like you can tell that he had a lot of influence on how good Spider-Man 2 was. And he didn't return for Spider-Man 3, and I think that was one of the reasons why that movie suffered, is because the writing just wasn't as good. But Chabon has been a part of Secret Hideout's writing staff for a while now. He's a Star Trek fan, he's a genre fiction fan. And he actually co-wrote the short trek Calypso, which was the best of, the short treks, in my opinion, at least, from this last batch. So the guy has a pedigree. He has a respect for Star Trek. He has training in writing and narrative, and he's proven that he is a good storyteller, that he's a good novelist, that he knows what he's doing. And he's been kind of with the Picard series from the beginning. This was kind of his baby. He kind of came on board, and he's been developing it alongside Alex Kurtzman from the start. And that's why he was handed the reins once Kurtzman stepped back to focus on other projects. And so because of this, I feel like Picard has a leg up on a train wreck like Discovery, because Discovery really suffered from a lack of vision. It suffered from a lack of a strong guiding hand. It changed, it changed showrunners so many times within its first 2 seasons. Like the production and development on Discovery was just in complete chaos from the start. And I think that's one of the reasons why it was, a very uneven show. And Discovery's basic concept also hamstrung it, because it was kind of confined within the canon of Star Trek, because it was set before the original series. But in addition to that, and this is very important, Les Moonves, the former head of CBS Studios, he had a lot of input on Discovery, and he was a notorious hater of all things science fiction. He did not like Star Trek. He did not like sci-fi. He didn't understand it, but he did understand licensing. And so a lot of his demands for what he wanted in Discovery were some of the things that I think audience members really rebelled against. He wanted the costumes to be different. He wanted the more advanced technology. He wanted all this stuff. He didn't care about continuity. Well, Les Moonves is no longer in charge of CBS. He's gone. So the Picard series doesn't have to deal with him on this. And I think the fact that Chabon's a good writer, that Alex Kurtzman's only involvement is with the pilot, and that Les Moonves is not there to interfere anymore. I think these are 3 things going for the Picard series that Discovery didn't have going for it. And I think going forward, I really trust Chabon in delivering a good show. And judging based off of this trailer, I think it looks pretty darn good. Now, I've heard some criticism that Picard seems relegated to a side character in his own show, with all the focus being on this girl, this mysterious new character. And I don't see that at all. Like, I think that she's kind of the MacGuffin of this story that kind of propels Jean-Luc to not only come back to Starfleet for this mission, but also is kind of like the thing that motivates him and is the catalyst for this story going forward. So I don't think he's a side character in his own show based off of this. Of course, I'm going to have to reserve judgment until I see the actual series. But everything I'm seeing from this trailer, I feel like hits the right notes and has the potential to be really, really good. And I like seeing the return of the next gen cast, and I like seeing Sir Patrick back in this role. And the hints that this is going to be a Borg story that kind of ties into Locutus and the Borg Queen and stuff like that. All the elements are there to set the stage for what could be a great show. And we all know that Sir Patrick is getting up in the years. Like I said, he's pushing 80. So I think that in addition to that, they're kind of looking down the road and saying like, okay, if Sir Patrick retires or God forbid passes away, we can take this new crew that we've set up in the Picard show and spin it off into its new series or its own series. I think that that's something that they were keeping in consideration while they were making this movie. So if it does feel like Picard is almost a side character in this, that might be why, because they're just hedging their bets on, that he stays alive long enough to make like a second season or a third season, like hopefully he lives until ripe old age. But, as the producers of this show, they have to take that into consideration. So there's definitely that going on here. But overall, I'm liking what I'm seeing. I think it's going to be good. What do you guys think? Is the Picard series going to be worth checking out? Is it going to be worth subscribing to CBS All Access for? Let me know in the comments, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so. And yeah, guys, follow me on the socials, and I will catch you in the next video. Later.